So, we have some seconds or minutes to on top of our scheduled time, so that is good because we have a lot of panelists. We have a lot of points to discuss during this panel, and I think that it's good to have 15 minutes more than what's suggested at the beginning. And so we keep this discussion in English, and we are talking about greenwashing, or to avoid greenwashing, and that is what suggested this morning at the market hour was talking about the risk of greenwashing. And so SFDR. So Murielle, would you want to start figure? What is for you SFDR?
This is the key issue for the future. No other comment.
What I say about my kids also.
Exactly, but my kids also ask me to pay attention to water and whatever I use. As Nicolas said before, it's just society discussion. It's not only about rules or laws or difficulties, papers, discussions, but it's also a planet issue. And we all need to be aware of it and do something. And everybody has to do it at its own level. So I would say we as brokers, life insurance companies, but also customers. So these panelists are here to discuss about this. Ladies first, Marco.
Yes, I will introduce the four panelists. I take care about the two women. So as you see, we are gender balance equality, 3 men and 3 women. So Claire de Boursetty, I think that Claire is well known in the insurance market, in Luxembourg insurance market, and now is the chairwoman of the LSFI. I let you, Claire, introduce yourself about what you are doing at LSFI and what is LSFI, because it's something new, as started last year, and it's very important. Then I will introduce Helena, but first, Claire.
Okay, does it work?
No.
Okay. Does it work? Really? Yes. Even in the back? It's okay because I really don't realize if it works or not. Okay, well, let's pretend it. Let's pretend it works. So the LSFI, the Luxembourg Sustainable Finance Initiative, it was launched last year. It was founded by the two ministries, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Environment. And we also have on our board Luxembourg for Finance, which is representing the Luxembourg financial sector. And we also have the High Council on Sustainable Development, the Conseil Supérieur du Développement Durable, which is an entity that advises the government on sustainability-related issues, and which represents the civil society being both the public and the NGOs. So we have these 4 entities on our board, so you can imagine that the discussions are pretty intense. And so yes, we were founded last year in January, and our role is to coordinate all the work that is done about sustainable finance in Luxembourg, and to push the financial sector towards sustainability, and to do that, or maybe to pull the financial sector in the sense that we have to create tools, practical tools to help the financial sector transition towards more sustainability. It's a bit abstract for now, but maybe later on we can...
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's enough? Okay.
Yes, thank you. And then I will introduce Helena Finn, that is working as Senior Associate at Medernach. It works, Helena?
Yes, is this working?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I work at Arendt and Medernach. I've worked here for about 8 years, both in the insurance and reinsurance department, but also in the banking and financial services department. And we as Arendt, we advise clients on ESG matters, but also in the investment fund industry, banking industry, but also in the insurance industry. So really have a global picture on this question, and I'm happy to be here to discuss this topic with you today.
So let's stay in the lawyer's domain. So I'm pleased to introduce you Mr. Nicolas Pradel from Stibbe Lawyers, associate in the banking and insurance finance practice.
Thank you for introduction. So hello everyone. Do you hear me? I think yes. Here it works. The microphone. As Murielle said, my name is Nicolas Pradel. I am a lawyer in the law firm Stibbe in Luxembourg, in the banking and finance and regulatory department. And so on ESG regulations, I am working a lot for 1 year already, advising clients, so for insurance sector, investment fund sector, banking and investment firms. And also, as you may know, I am one of the contributors of the vademecum that the Apcal did on the implementation of the SFDR for brokerage and insurance in Luxembourg. Yes, Marco has the guide in his hand. And also, as also you may know, I am one of the contributors of the SFDR guidelines that the ABBL, ACA, and ALFI did earlier this year also. So I'm very happy to be with you today and to discuss the topic in this one table.
Okay, and last but not least, we have an insurance company with us. So this is Filippo Mancini from Banque Internationale.
Yeah, I hope also my microphone, okay, it's working. So thank you, hello everybody. So I'm part of the wealth structuring solution team of Lombard. So I'm wealth planner, mainly focused on the Italian market. And so as the wealth structuring solution department, we take care of the product development side and also the tax and regulatory advice for the clients in case of complex cases, and I'm also part of the ESG committee of the company with respect to the product development side, and so the offering that we are considering in terms of the implementation of the SFDR.
Thank you, Filippo. So we can start this panel that is dedicated to ESG and sustainable insurance and finance, because we are talking about life insurance. So in the last 18 months, a lot of survey has developed and discovered that there is a lot of request about investment in green finance, in green insurance. And now it's important, there is a new regulation about SFDR that entered in force in the beginning of March this year. But I would like to ask Claire that to explain why we are here. This is how is the past regulation, and we are here, why?
Okay, so I will give just a bit of context about, yes, why do you have now to deal with this awful acronym and all the other ones, but SFDR. Yes, so it all started actually by something that I guess you've heard of, which is called the Paris Agreement back in 2015. Where we had this pledge from several countries, like many countries around the world, saying, okay, we will try to keep the average temperature on the globe well below 2 degrees, and if possible, below 1.5 degrees. So that was the starting point. And from then, actually, the European Commission, shortly after, launched this high-level expert group, so another acronym maybe you've come across, which sometimes is called HLEG. And so this high-level expert group was commissioned to draw a report about how to have sustainable finance strategies for the EU, to put it simply. And so it was, I think it was launched already in 2016, and the report was released early 2018. And already in this report, you had the first ideas of an SFDR, of a taxonomy, of a benchmark regulation, and so on. And from this report, like just a few months later, the European Commission launched its own action plan for sustainable growth, where you found the idea of the SFDR, the taxonomy, and so on. And and from then on, it all went actually very fast, because you already had the first drafts of the SFDR. I think it was already in 2019, because I remember doing a little table for ACA with all the details of the draft regulation. So yeah, and actually I remember hearing a European official on a panel discussion saying it might feel very slow what's happening at European level, but on this very topic, sustainable finance, we are actually going extremely fast compared to the usual standards of European regulation. So this is a bit the context of SFDR.
So this is very interesting. You mentioned sustainable growth and the SFDR. So there is the link between what we are discussing now and sustainable growth. What is the European government is pushing to make more growth and long-term growth with sustainability behind. And SFDR, we are talking here the fact that we can act as broker, as insurance, to help this sustainable growth. And so it's not.
If I can just add, yes. Because I said, it all started with the Paris Agreement, but it's true that the same year, just a couple of months before, you had the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN. So
the famous 17 SDGs. Okay. And then also there is an impact also in local regulation, no? There is also, it's not only European regulation, we are talking also Luxembourg has made some effort on this.
Yes, so at the level of Luxembourg, what happened is also that following the Paris Agreement, you had, maybe some of you participated in this task force or heard of this task force, but the Luxembourg government set up a climate finance task force in 2016. That was chaired by the two ministers, Minister Gramegna, Minister Dischburg already at the time, and you had several representatives of the financial sector and some also service providers. They were also asked by the ministers directly to work on initiatives, but it was more specifically on climate finance. And so this is, they've come up with several initiatives. One that is the most well-known, if you're interested in this topic, maybe you've heard of it. It's called ICFA, the International Climate Finance Accelerator, which is here in Luxembourg, that is helping fund managers to develop funds with a climate impact, a positive climate impact, so it's very specific. So that was the very start. And then, because it was a bit unofficial, it was a bit done, there was no solid law behind this task force. It was just an initiative of ministries. What happened is that in 2018, the government wanted to have a roadmap, more of a vision of what could be done about sustainable finance in Luxembourg, and that's where they decided to have this sustainable finance roadmap that was developed also with stakeholders of the financial sectors and other stakeholders also from the NGOs. There was a broad consultation process at the time to launch this kind of report that gives a vision of what Luxembourg could do in sustainable finance. And here you found the different recommendations. And the first recommendation was to create a coordinating entity, and here we are. The LSFI was launched 1.5 years later. So that was the idea behind all of this is to consolidate what is happening at the Luxembourgish level, because of course from a regulatory point of view, Luxembourg tends to, doesn't want to gold play, doesn't want to go further than what's happening at European level, which is not always the case. Maybe you've heard in France they're going a bit further. Maybe our panelists will be able to be more precise on this. So on a regulatory point of view, this is the European level that we are expecting, and us as a coordinating entity, we're here to help the sector to embrace really this change with the tools that we are developing currently.
Thank you, Claire. And when you are talking about sustainable finance, is also considering sustainable insurance, because the two words are very linked.
Yeah, sustainable finance products, if you prefer. Yeah.
Thank you. So, what I heard now is the fact that Luxembourg is very active in promoting the sustainable growth, and SFDR entered in force in March this year. And so, Helena, could you explain in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, if you want, what is SFDR for dummies?
Absolutely. I'll try to keep it in 3 minutes for something that's quite complex and really be quite short. So, as Claire was just saying, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, which was published in 2019, is part of the European Commission Action Plan for financing sustainable investments. And really the idea is to redirect capital flows towards more sustainable growth. And it's, as Claire was just saying, it really comes in the context of a wider initiative with a series of other texts which really sort of interlink. So you can think about, for example, taxonomy. So all these elements come together in the context of this European Commission action plan. And what does SFDR do? In a nutshell, basically, it imposes mandatory disclosures on certain actors who have to really explain how they take into account certain sustainability elements as an entity, but also in their products. What is really the objective of this text? So, on the one hand, we're looking to create a level playing field between different actors, so in their disclosures. So, across the EU, you have a disclosure which is somewhat harmonized. But also, we're looking at creating more transparency for the end consumer and more comparability between products from, let's say, a sustainability perspective. And that's really the objective in a context where the consumer itself is looking for this information, is looking for more sustainability. So that's really, let's say, the objective on where we're going with this text. The scope of the text, you have two different components. On the one side, you have the financial market participants, which is more like the entities which are manufacturing the product. So we're talking about insurance companies, for example. On the other hand, you have the financial market advisors, which will be more on the distribution side, who will fall within the scope when they're providing advice to a client. For a broker will fall within the context, in the scope of SFDR, when they're providing advice in relation to insurance-based investment products, so the so-called EBIP. You have one small exception for brokers which employ less than 3 employees, in which case the requirements will not be applicable. But that's this global scope, so you have these two components to the scope of SFDR. Which disclosures are we talking about? Again, to try and put it in a nutshell and try to keep it simple, you have two types of disclosures. On the one hand, you have what we call the entity level disclosures. And this applies to financial market participants, financial market advisors. And really, it's the actors have to explain how them, as an entity, they take into account sustainability elements in their assessments. So, for example, we're talking about sustainability risk policies, we're talking about the consideration of adverse sustainability impact. So this is really at the entity level. This information has to be published on the website of the relevant entity and for certain components also in the remuneration policy of the entity. So that's the first component. Then you have the second component, which is the product level disclosure. And here again, applies to financial market participants and financial market advisors, but to a lesser extent. The type of disclosures, and I won't go into too much detail here, but the type of disclosures which are to be provided on the product level will then depend on the category of the relevant product. So you have certain, let's say, general disclosures for all financial products, but then depending on the type of product which we're talking about, you have some specific disclosures, Article 8, Article 9, but I won't go into detail on this because I think we could spend several hours discussing these disclosures. The product level disclosures have to occur for certain on the website of the relevant professional, but also in pre-contractual documentation, which is going to go to the policyholder and in certain reports. It's always important to bear in mind that these disclosures, which I've briefly summarized, come on top of existing disclosures which exist in the sector, so IDD, PRIPS, etc. So there's additional obligations. From a timing perspective, as Marco is saying, these obligations for the most part came into effect on the 10th of March 2021, but a series of new disclosures will also come into force in 2022. And I believe we'll be discussing this also during the panel today. So I tried to keep it simple, and I'm not sure it was 2 minutes, but I think I wasn't too far.
We didn't even have a look at the watch.
Good.
So maybe to jump on another point, Nicolas. This is a story. It looks like somehow a never-ending story. So are we at the end of the journey, or is it just the beginning?
So it's the beginning of the journey, of the ESG journey, and both from a legal and operational perspectives. We'll speak about it later, I think, but the first challenge is operational because you will need, as an insurance firm manufacturing EBIPs, or as a distributor, as a broker, you will need to understand what are the characteristics of the products that is proposed. Is it really ESG or not? You need to have experts who will advise you how to do it. So there is, as said, legal and operational challenges. And so from the legal side, what Helena summarized just now is the rules of the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, the SFDR, and the rules that are so-called level 1 rules. It's the first layer. And there is a second layer coming, which are the regulatory technical standards, which for now are only projects, it's a draft. They were supposed to be adopted for the end of this year, but as you may know, the European Commission did a letter to the European Parliament and the EU Council last week, I think, saying that, on the 25th of November, actually. And they say, okay, we are late, we are not able to decide now how the technical regulatory standard will look, so we are sure that they will be adopted at the best beginning of next year, and they will enter into force in January 2023. So it's the first element of the legal journey, the SFDR RTS, Regulatory Technical Standards. Then the second element of the journey is the deadline is in August next year, August 2022. You have a delegated act modifying the IDD technical standards for both manufacturers of EBIPs and distributors. And then you have a lot of new rules that will be applicable by next summer. In short, in brief, manufacturers of EBIPs, they need to find for ESG products the relevant target market. They need to build a product that will answer the need of the target market. And they need to inform brokers, distributors of all relevant ESG data, information. And then the distributor, based on the information provided by the manufacturers of EBIPs, they will find clients and propose them products that fit their ESG objectives, their ESG preferences. And then the last thing that needs to be taken into account is for, financial products that invest in economical activities which are considered under the taxonomy regulation as substantially having an environmental impact. For this, you will have a series of delegated acts explaining, setting out, technical screening criteria to know if one of the products fall in the category of taxonomy aligned product or not. So it's a lot of new rules coming, a lot of things that we'll need to follow, all of us, to be able to advise clients on ESG products. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. So after this, let's say, low side of the ESG story, do you have maybe any questions or remarks, comments you would like to add to those three panelists?
Everybody's scared about.
No question.
No, no question.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. I have a question with regard to liability, because indeed the SFDR is applicable since March 2021. As BPAR, we had, of course, our meetings with the authorities, and everybody is reasonable from a compliance perspective, conduct supervision perspective, and so on. But in the meantime, this applies. So there is perhaps a liability issue. It was also mentioned before by the chairman of ASA, of the insurers, ACA, pardon. Thank you, Catherine, sorry. ACA. That there is greenwashing. Now, as long as we do not know what green is, you are potentially greenwashing. Today there is this discussion in taxonomy whether nuclear is green or not. So how do you now suggest that we comply in practice? Thank you.
It's an easy question. You only had one credit.
This is a very good question. The mic works? Yeah. So, liability of financial market participants, so product manufacturer, and then also distributors, you might be liable on two levels. First, you have the private enforcement. If the client is not happy with what you propose him, he can consider that you did a bad advice, and it created damage for the client, and he can make an action in liability against you. So it needs to be seen. But here, actually, you have a contract with the client, so it will be contractual liability. So there is a possibility for an action, contractual liability against you, but this will have to be assessed according to the Luxembourg rules for liability. This is a private enforcement, let's say, is a client who is unhappy. Then, second thing is the supervisor, so the public enforcement. So in the SFDR, you have an article that says that member states of the EU, so Luxembourg also, needs to ensure that all actors, they will apply SFDR rules and we comply. So here, currently, in Luxembourg, there is a bill of law that for law which will establish specific powers of control for the Commissariat d'Assurance, CSF for banking sector and investment funds, and specific sanctions, including fines and things like that. So, yes, it's true. It's important to comply, both to avoid any public sanction and also to avoid that the client will be unhappy and try to make a trial against you.
Any other comments to add?
I think we can just add one comment, which is I fully agree from a, let's say, from a pure legal perspective, these sanctions exist or will exist, but I agree with your comment, which is how do you comply with something which is not finished? I believe that for the elements which are finished, which are clear, there is absolutely no question. But there will be some debate for especially elements which we're expecting RTS for, which will provide some additional information, additional guidance. How can a professional comply with these rules which are not yet completely ready? And I think that will be a question over the next months or so.
And if I may add, it's completely true what Helena is saying, that you have two things to keep in mind. First, and it's very funny because you have a group of experts that advise the ESMA, who is one of the European supervisory authority who created the draft technical standard. And it was in May this year, and they said, look, everyone in the market, supervisors, even EU bodies, they are creating some rules, so it's not entirely clear, and everyone is in a learning curve. Everyone is learning how to apply those. So first year, we can expect that there will be a tolerance from public supervision authority for the actor to apply those. But maybe you noticed, for example, that 2nd of December, the CSF for investment funds, they did a press release saying, okay, RTS, we know that they are delayed, but we invite you, how they say, to inspire yourself of the draft RTS to already comply with the rules, because you have deadlines already from 10th of March and also in January next year. And please inspire yourself from the RTS as far as possible, but as for now, and also on a best effort basis. So you see there is a bit a mix of some level 2 rules are missing, so it's not entirely clear from a legal perspective, but you already need to comply. And so, for example, in the mechanism that we did with Apcal, we try to summarize everything. We provide also templates to help you to already follow the rules and to already try to comply as much as you can.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Claire wanted to add something, or?
Yeah, if I may.
What we see in when you have surveys or studies about the implementation, like the sale of ESG products in wealth, in private banking, I will advise you to have a look at some of the studies done by the Center for Sustainable Finance, I think, and Private Wealth. I think that's how it's called, of the Zurich University, where they've made studies about how ESG, sustainable finance products, are sold in the private banking world, and it's very interesting to see that there is that you see that it's really complicated to sell these products. That it's more complicated than the usual products that I suppose you have to sell. And so there is, as you were saying, there is a learning curve just about how to understand the legal side, but there's also a learning curve in understanding what an ESG product is and what's the real and how you can sell it also. Yeah.
Sorry, I fully agree with the principle, and we have to go for it. But the problem is that within 3 years or 4 years, we may be confronted with a consumer who will not take into consideration the learning curve. And
That's why it's important to train.
who will go to a judge,
Yeah.
and then we need to be able to explain to that judge
How you sold the product.
how we sold the product.
So you
what
need
I
to
think
be
that,
super precise
so
when
what
you
I
sell.
believe that it is in this transition phase, what is extremely important is to document your demands and needs and to make sure that your client signs and recognizes what you have told him under what circumstances. I believe that that is something that we need to take into consideration in at least the transition.
Every time when we are doing our job as broker, we have to take into consideration this risk, not only on SFDR. I think that when we started my company 20 years ago, I remember that in discussion internally, we say we have to comply in the next 10 years future law, not now. Because when you are in a life insurance business, you have to keep in mind that the risk is far away. Okay, so we have to work now, and the reason of this panel, for example, is to start and to explain that is a new risk or the new possibility. Because I think that it's not only a risk about the SFDR, it's an opportunity about business. Is a way to attract, to become Luxembourg center for insurance, green insurance. That is the only place in Europe that, as we mentioned this morning, that the 5% of the premium in Luxembourg are only in Luxembourg, means that 95% come from abroad. So we have this very big opportunity to be recognized as competent and expert in green finance and green insurance. No? And the risk is there because the risk is our job. We are doing advice and always there is a risk. Bert?
Going further on developing the concerns, everything you say is true. I have a request to what you said, Marco, in our business freedom of services. We distribute in something like 12 different countries. Are we the super that must understand every local regulation, or will that be an equal level playing field in all the countries? How much percentage Europe will we find back in the general good part of this story? Will it be for every country something different, or will it be 95% equal?
Yes, the SFDR, it's a European Union regulation, so it's harmonized rules for the 27 member states of the EU. So the rules will be very harmonized on this. There is only a few topics that are open for member states to take rules that are a bit different. For example, the threshold for small brokers who employ less than 3 employees. It's open to member states if they want to be more strict. For now, Luxembourg did not use these rules to be more strict, but in general, it will be harmonized.
It's a directly applicable regulation, so the idea is really this harmonization at each member.
Forgive me for the question, but that's what they say about all directives.
Yeah, the idea is that to have the text, to use the regulation without having implementing text, which to the contrary to directive does lead in principle to more harmonization.
I see the SFDR a little bit like a label, a quality label as well. So, and this will apply more to the product, especially to the product. So I think the liability for the distributor is more to check if the products are compliant, but they will have to base themselves on what the product developer says. They will not be able to go very far, I think, to analyze what the sous-jacent, the assets, if they are really compliant. So I think the liability on the broker, is that correct? You can correct me, is to
check the information that has been provided by the product developer, and it's on the liability for the product is on the product developer. So our liabilities, in a way, just want to check.
Rob says we have our own book. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay. So let's now, after this universe, legal story, let's now jump a little bit to the customer side, and let's see whether Philippe or how Lombard or any other life insurance company sees this regulation. How can we make from this an opportunity and not only a challenge somehow?
So yes, first of all, I would like to say that I feel your doubts and I share them. I mean, as an insurance company, we are also facing these kind of problems with respect to the interpretation of the SFDR. Of course, Lombard is working on the implementation of the regulation in terms of the disclosure of information and also the information flows with the partners. So the starting point is that the life insurance company, the life insurance product is by definition not a sustainable solution, because we share the long-term investment horizon, not the interest of multiple generations, and the idea of a sustainable asset management of the portfolio. The point for me is that the SFDR includes in the scope of applications all the financial market operators and most of the financial products. And it seems that the specific features of the different products are not really taken into account in the SFDR, but it applies to different kind of sector of the financial insurance sector. So from our side, the range of products of Lombard are open architecture unit-linked products. What does it mean? It means that the investment parameters are set by Lombard on compliance with the Luxembourgish law and the tax and insurance law of the country of residence of the client. But the concrete investment decisions are not taken by Lombard, are taken by all the investment manager in the case of a discretionary management with a dedicated fund or a collective fund, or directly by the policyholder or an advisor in the case of specialized fund. What does it mean? It means that these are the entities which are best placed to consider the sustainability risks in investment decisions, because they are the ones that take the investment decisions. It's not the company. So that's why at the moment the company does not take into account the adverse impacts of the investment decision on sustainability. Our product offering in terms of ESG is the chance for the client to integrate Article 8 or Article 9 investment mandates underlining a dedicated fund or a collective fund, or the chance for the client to select some Article 8 or Article 9 usage from a fund picking list. So, in order to answer to your question, I would say that the SFDR is an opportunity, because as the other panelist said, it will create a level playing field in terms of product offering. That's what is very interesting for us. But in order to avoid the greenwashing risk, but we have to pay attention to the clarity of the legal framework, because for the moment there are a lot of uncertainty points. I mean, I would like to come back to what we have said before. For the regulatory technical standards, the first version were published, I would say, 1 year ago. And at that time, there was already an invitation from some national authorities to comply with them, even if they were not enforced. And a few weeks ago, we have seen a total different version of regulatory technical standards. And now there is a new invitation from the authorities to follow them. So, and they will enter into force in 2023. There are a lot of uncertainty in this sense, and it's a problem for the company in order to define a clear product development strategy.
Thank you. Any comments to add? Marco has a question.
I have a question, because we are talking about Article 6, Article 8, Article 9. I don't think that all the auditors knows which the difference between this type of articles. Can you briefly summarize between the difference? What it means 8, 9, and 6?
Yes, so Marco, I can take this question. So under the SFDR, you have three categories of product. So you have the super dark greens are called like this, super ESG product, the so-called Article 9 products. And for those products, it's investment product, financial product with an exclusive objective of sustainable investment, Article 9. Then you have the category, you go a bit lower, Article 8 product is products that do not have exclusive objective of sustainable investment, but they promote ESG characteristics, environmental, social, and characteristics. So, and in general, it will be that you will have an investment in one product that invests in one activity, and as an ancillary, on an ancillary basis, you want to promote environmental and social characteristics, Article 8. And then the last category is the products that are not 9 or 8, they are not ESG products. And it's the last category, it's called also Article 6 under the SFDR.
Thank you, Nicolas. It is very important clarification, so everybody knows the difference between the three funds. Bert, you want to say something?
Yeah, you're just picking up the question he didn't receive an answer on. Because the question for the broker is to know at the end of the day, there's different levels of liability. We try to resume that to only 2 levels. Let's try to keep it simple, even if it's not the level of the product manufacturer and the level of the advisor. In what you say then, I don't want to challenge you, but I challenge you. We are in a country distributing in multiple countries. France is a country of IBIP external fund-based policy. Belgium is a country of IBIP internal collective fund-based policy. I have learned that the insurer at the end of the day can outsource investment management, but remains end responsible for his outsourcing. So who will be responsible of the qualification of that, how many articles or categories of funds we will end up with? It won't be the distributor. He will have to take for granted what he receives. But I hear you saying that it will be the investment manager. But no, it will be the insurer, the product manufacturer, or not. I'm just trying to, and for the rest I know it's a debate, but just to give us a little bit of peace of mind today, no?
May I answer in this sense? So the company, the insurance company, is the responsible in terms of disclosure with the client. That's clear, and also with the distributor, so with the brokers. The point is that in order to highlight which are the issues for the insurance company for the implementation of the SFDR, because the qualification as an Article 8 or Article 9 of a fund, it depends on the entity which takes the investment decisions. And the investment decisions are taken by the asset manager. But of course, this is not something that then has an influence for the distributor. It's just to explain that the company, at the moment, in the absence of a clear interpretation in the sense of the division of competencies, is not really aware of how to build a product offering, because the company will be responsible in front of the clients, in front of the distributors. But at the same time, it might not have a complete overall view on the investment manager and what he's doing. And so if let's also consider this. Maybe the alignment with the EU taxonomy, we're about to make things easier, because the investment manager will comply with the EU taxonomy, so you can trust on what the investment manager is doing, and you can say, okay, so there is the qualification as Article 8 or Article 9, we can trust this, and we can disclose this kind of qualification to the distributors and the clients. But now it seems that the new version of the RTS, it seems that the alignment with the EU taxonomy is not mandatory anymore. So the investment manager might also use external criteria, and this means that the insurance company will have to check on this, and you have just to imagine a big company as Lombard, how many investment managers we work with. And this kind of specific relationship is not taken into account at all by the SFDR regulation and the delegated acts. And this is our main problem. I hope this was clear. Of course, it was just to understand, to explain that it was not, so the liability was not put on the distributor, of course.
We just want the lawyers to tell us that as distributors, we don't have responsibility
Okay, so we leave the floor
in the wrong qualification of an investment fund linked to a weakened EBIT. That's all we want to hear. Lawyers, please.
No, but what you say and what Filippo says, it is true. Just to summarize. So the manufacturer of EBIPs, he will propose a product. He will say, okay, me, I want to create a product, Article 9, Super ESG, Article 8, promotion of environmental and social characteristics, or not. And the product manufacturer, under SFDR, they will have most of the responsibilities on their shoulders.
Check.
Yeah, but it's and as usual for every type of EBIPs, they provide you information about the EBIPs, what is the target market, what are the characteristics of the product, and you, based on the information that the manufacturer is giving you, you will distribute to your clients that you know, because you know that the product fits their expectations, their objectives, their appetite for risks, and so on. So it's a tango. You have the manufacturer, you have the distributor. Both of them, they have their own responsibilities. And it's the same with SFDR, it's just a new layer, it's that you have the ESG characteristics of the product. So you cannot recommend to a client a product that will not fit his ESG expectations. And the duty on the distributor, there is one, is to not recommend things that are improper, you know. You need to recommend products that fit the expectation of the client. If you know that a product doesn't fit the expectation of the client, you must refrain to recommend the product. And this is a legal obligation in the Delegated Act on the sustainability of insurance products.
No, okay.
Yes.
We understand that rule.
Yes.
What we'd like to avoid or see avoided, because we are not controlling it, is that we'll end up in the same story as the famous EBIT documents for EBITs. I can give you in 5 minutes a demonstration of the same fund receives 3 or 4 different risk categories. And so who are we as distributors to make the analysis of that and to say this one was the right one and that one is the wrong one?
Yes.
It's not an easy one.
Absolutely. And
so I hope this will not happen with this story.
Yes.
That's all I hope.
And that's why you can have prudent disclosures in your pre-contractual documentation. You can say in your pre-contractual documentation that you endeavor to advise the client the best you can, but there's a challenge because that ESG data might be not fully up to date, correct, because it's difficult topic, ESG data. That's the thing, and you need to prepare your disclosures in order to comply with the rules, but also you can always try to have explanations for the client that there are risks.
As a distributor, we have a kind of, sorry for this, but we have a kind of obligation to give a best advice.
Yes.
Ending a best advice with the big disclaimer does not always work. And clients go home and say, you don't know, I don't know either, I won't take my decision.
Yes.
So somewhere, it's not easy to enter it. This still is a bit of smoky type of solution. I can help you further. Or please client, I gave you my best advice, but can you tick now the case that you do it without advice of mine?
Absolutely.
We really are in a not easy situation.
Yeah, but you underline an issue that is real. It's difficult, it's a balance to find. And the thing is that for each product, you will have an analysis because each product is different. One time it will be investment in nice forests that will be rebuilt to be a CO2 project.
Yes. Just to make this simple, I think that we were 1 year ago or 2 years ago facing the fact that we have to know the difference between the UCITS funds and IF. So we cannot provide clients alternative funds for retail clients or UCITS funds for everybody. So for me, as broker, it's the same situation now. So it's a new layer of type of funds, and so the manufacturer, as the fund producer, has to decide if it's 8 or 9 or 6. Okay, so we have to be comfortable there is a law, because SFDR is not only linked to insurance. We are at the end of the story, because the beginning of the story was the fund industry. So there is, an environment, a global environment that consider this new type of investments. So there is this Article 9 or Article 8. As IF could be Article 9 or 8. So, but we keep it simple that we, as advisor for the client, we have to advise the clients in terms of which type of investment means alternative or simple investments. And then we can add the layer of the green solution. So we were, now we are a bit late, so we speed up the discussion, and then we have time also at the end, sorry, for other questions. So we heard clear that we are talking about former Minister of Finance, Mr. Gramegna, because now he's former Minister of Finance, was one of the super fan about sustainability, and Luxembourg is considered itself as a promoter of the sustainability is a leader, want to become a leader in sustainability finance, as for the insurance, also for the fund industry, because Luxembourg is a global leader of the fund industry in Europe. And LSFI, as you are talking before about finance, what is the role of LSFI to support insurance and brokers? No? Because we are always talking about finance, but what is your main goal about what are you doing with for the insurance business?
Minister Gramegna is still Minister of Finance until he's replaced.
He's replaced, no?
He will be replaced, but he's still the minister for now.
He's replaced.
Sorry?
Had to be replaced.
On 1st of January. Yeah, no.
1st of January? Okay, sorry.
Thank you. So anyhow, but that doesn't really matter anyway. If we want to focus on insurance companies, brokers, actually, of course, we have like a wide objective of, helping the sector to transition towards sustainability. So it's very broad, and we have to find a way to practically help the sector. And as you understood, also we started our activities not that long ago, basically in February this year when we launched our strategy. So please be mindful of that. But what I want to say is that, for instance, what we are doing, we work closely with the financial sector associations. So, of course, ALFI, ABBL, but also ACA is part of our stakeholders. And so we talk with them, we listen to what their problems are, and also we are trying to work together on certain topics. And we are at the beginning of several works that we are doing, so it's difficult for me to give you a view on everything we do, because certain things are really just starting. But what I can tell you that we are currently doing that could be of interest to you is that we are developing tools on our website that are publicly, freely available to help the sector navigate sustainable finance. So we started with something that we've never seen anywhere else. I don't know if you heard, for instance, of the Principle for Responsible Investment, PRI, stuff like that, or the UNEP-FI, or I don't know, the Principle for Sustainable Insurance, and all these things that you kind of hear about, but you don't really know what it is. So we actually, you have a lot of these at international level, European level, and there you have initiatives, frameworks, standards, tools that you have out there that are actually existing and here to help insurers, but also, I don't know to what extent it could help brokers. Remain to be seen honestly on a practical basis, but at least on a strategic level, I'm sure you can find tools there to help. And what we've done is that we explain what are these initiatives, framework standards, tools that you can find, where you can actually be a member of or subscribe to, and we made extensive lists of these on our website. So that, you know, if you're an insurer and you are interested in climate, for instance, you can write insurer climate, and then you can find, you know, the tools, the standards that you can use. So this is, for instance, what we are creating. We also now, we will launch in the coming weeks a list of trainings, like of sustainable finance related trainings, because it's like a key issue, actually. I understand it from many stakeholders, and it's difficult to know what, because we have so many trainings all over. So we are listing trainings in Luxembourg and trainings that you can actually also follow from Luxembourg. And so we will also release that. So it will be a list again where you have search capabilities. I mean, to find the right trainings that you can use. So these are some examples. Also, we will do some regulation monitoring on our website. Everything will be publicly available, of course. Because this is our role. So these are some examples of what we do. I can't make a full list, but these are examples. And also, as we are at the start of what we're doing, if you ever have an idea of something we could work on that would be useful for everyone, please come to us, talk to us, tell us, maybe this, it would be interesting to work maybe with the insurance sector. I mean, I don't want to take the role of Apcal either, but you know, if it's related to sustainable finance and there is something that you think we could be helpful with, where our door is open, you can always drop us an email or, you know, get in touch with us, and we are happy to discuss. So, yeah.
Thank you, Claire. I think that we can show on the screen some toolbox that is last month, Luxembourg, that is a local authority for has developed this sustainable insurance product label. You can find on the website. It's useful because on this you can find eligible criteria to develop something that is linked to sustainable insurance. That is very important because you see that we are now talking about law, talking about something that is not concrete, and you see here there is concrete reference to Article 8, Article 9, what is considered a sustainable insurance product.
If I just may add, if you don't mind, very quickly. As LSFI, we're also doing a lot of awareness raising sessions. If you think it could be useful, we've done this for several banks. Of course, it's for free. I mean, we were funded by the government. And we participated in some programs of some banks where, you know, to do raising awareness session for the employees, for instance, on sustainable finance, to explain what it is as a retail investor, as a private investor, but as also an institution, for instance. But just to add.
Thank you, Claire.
Okay, so let's move on to a bit more practical issues. We just seen LuxFlag is starting to have this label, and LuxFlag already had it for funds also. Nicolas, we as Apcal, in order to help our brokers and our colleagues to make it more clear and maybe go to the details of it, we worked to compile a guideline, a vademecum, with specific elements to help us as brokers to comply with these rules and help our clients. So Marco is going to the show. Could you just summarize in 3 short points what's in this vademecum and how it can help us to be more ESG as broker?
Yes. With the Apcal, we prepared a short vademecum. I don't remember. It's 25 pages or 24 pages. So everything that we discussed today is summarized. We try to do it very simple to read. It's in French and English, I think, also. Yeah. And so 24 pages. It summarizes the rules for SFDR, what applies to you as a broker, what applies to the insurance firm who manufacturers. You also have a part explaining this delegated regulation, you know, that you will have to implement by next August. And at the end, you have a template of disclosures to comply with SFDR, template of disclosures for your websites, both in French and in English, and templates for pre-contractual disclosures also. Those templates are done to be, they are general, you can adapt them, of course, you can inspire yourself, but we hope it's a useful tool for you. And just to finish that point, We already discussed during the questions what are the challenges, the three challenges with SFDR. So the first challenge is the challenge of know-how. You need to know the rules, you need to follow the rules. The guide, the vademecum helps to follow. And also you need to assess for each client what is him or her sustainability preference. Then, as said, and we discussed it, so we feel it, and Filippo said it also, there is this tango between you as a distributor and the product manufacturer, so the cooperation. And then, sir, you said it, the key word, and it's what we were discussing also during training sessions previous weeks, is to document. You document everything. And then you will be fine.
Thank you, Nicolas. So then it's turn to Helena. We are a bit late, so I'll let you go directly to, as you can imagine, the cooperation between insurance and the broker to cope with the request of the government to be invested in responsible, stable finance.
Absolutely, and I believe this is something that we've already discussed a few times today, so I'll try and just add a few elements. I think the first point, and we've seen this quite a few just in our discussions, is there's no clear mechanism which is provided for under SFDR which really sort of gives you this framework for cooperation. It's more of a split of obligations between financial market participants on the one hand and financial market advisors on the other, but you don't really have this clear cut, how do we cooperate, how is everything really, how does cooperation have to work? That's a difficulty, but in practice, I believe that cooperation actually will be key under SFDR to meet the requirement to provide this information to the relevant clients and to ensure the level playing field and the adequate transparency. And in the context of a relationship between a broker and an insurer, as we were seeing before, it's the broker who's in contact with the client at the end. So the insurer needs, let's say, the broker to be able to provide certain of the information under SFDR to the broker, to the client, sorry. But on the other hand, also as a broker, you, in your assessment, you will need certain elements from the insurance company to be able to carry out your assessment adequately and in line with FFDR requirements. So you will need this cooperation to occur and to be able to have this exchange of information to really make sure that the information which is coming to the end client is in line with the legal requirements and with the expectations of the client. But I believe there's one, let's say, positive consequence that can come from this cooperation, which is, as I was saying at the beginning of the discussion, to the contrary of IDD to PRIPS, the information which is being requested under SFDR is really something that the client is looking for. Clients are pushing for more sustainability. And this is something that you will also see in the requests that you're going to be receiving from clients that will tend towards more and more transparency from the client. And so, of course, this will also be reflected as in brokers' services offering, where you have to take into account more sustainability criteria to make sure that you comply with your requirements to meet the criteria of the customer and to make sure that you offer products which meet their needs and their requirements. So if the broker is pushing for more sustainability, this also at a high level will push for more sustainability and more sustainable products at the level of the insurance company, because otherwise insurance companies won't remain relevant and won't remain attractive, because if your client is looking for more sustainability, pushing for sustainability from the broker will want to offer more sustainable products. I think this is more of a long-term goal. It's more of how this can be positive, because it's always important to see positive elements in these new regulations. But I think at the end of the day, it could be a real opportunity for the market to turn towards more ESG product offerings for the end client. As a quick summary.
Thank you. You wanted to add something? Okay. I'd like to ask Filippo, maybe to conclude as a practical side. How do you, with Lombard, cope with somehow customers' requests? But is it only coming from the top and regulation asking us for more ESG, or do you already feel a kind of bottom-up coming from the customers themselves? Could you share us, let's say, some practical points?
Yeah, so I would say that the interest is coming from the above, from the regulation. So we started the implementation of the SFDR in order to be in line with the deadlines. But in this sense, it's it's currently for us a problem to pass from the words to deeds now, because, as I said before, the legal framework it's not very clear. First of all, I would say in the division of the competencies and liabilities in terms of the product offering now for the manufacturer, and as I said before, for the qualification of the product with the investment managers, which provides the investment mandate. I'm talking in the case of discretionary management. So I would say that in this sense, the last news related to the delegated acts of the SFDR, it might be a good news that the EU Commission made a kind of step backwards with respect to the new version of the regulatory technical standards, where so the qualification of as Article 8, Article 9 has not to be aligned, is not mandatory, the alignment with the EU taxonomy. On the other side, I would say that the postponement to 2023, it might be a problem in the absence of a coordination with the timing of the other delegated acts. I mean, I will make an example. You all know, because this will affect all the distributors, so also the insurance company, that in middle 2022, there will be the review of the IDD, the entry into force of the review of the IDD, so the distributor will have to collect the ESG preferences of the client. So this means that the company will have to be ready with an ESG product offering by that time, because in order to meet the client expectation. But my point is how it will be possible to have a clear and fully compliant SFDR product in the absence of the technical provisions, which will enter into force only 6 months later. And maybe we will not even have yet the text of the delegated regulation. So that's why we hope that we will see from the EU Commission an input in the review of the coordination in this sense. But of course, also the interest is coming from the clients. I would say that we usually, when we think about ESG, we think about millennials. Unfortunately, I would say in Europe, it's difficult to find a millennial who has already joined the high net worth individual group. usually our clients are quite older, but we have catch their interest also. So we have to be ready to ride this wave of interest.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank all of you for this interesting panel. Time flies, so we're getting late, so the timekeeper is asking us to close. This is challenging. Nobody has a crystal ball to see the future, but we'll keep in touch and keep informed and try to make it more concrete, let's say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Effectivement, c'est un débat très intéressant et je pense qu'on n'a pas fini d'en entendre parler en 2022. Il y aura d'ailleurs des formations à ce sujet-là.